So I recently noticed that a very important part of games is gameplay, who would have thought? And survival horror games are known for their systems such as an inventory, looting, resource management, crafting, and I still somehow made a walking simulator. But I gotta say, the progress I've made is gonna blow your socks off. I've really focused in on gameplay recently, and I'm proud to say I no longer just have a horror, I have a horror game. Look, it's no secret that I've been producing ass gameplay since day one, but I told myself that it was better this time around because I have an inventory and looting and cooler creatures. But I've just been going through the stages of grief because the gameplay is still just go hunt a deer, feed it to your heart, and inject the blood in your veins, while occasionally getting The level design is the first thing I'm going to work on because right now, you kind of just walk in a straight line, which makes for a very uncool forest. Considering way back yonder when I was exploring one myself, I could literally go in any direction I wanted, whether that be through a thorn bush or walking across a river. So, to remedy this, I quickly threw together a version of the forest which is more open. All I did was not worry about using my level design skills at all. Instead, I put on my blindfold, plugged my ears, and set everything up with my feet. And it was fire. I guess as soon as I removed my expert level design skills from the level, my levels immediately improved. While playing it, I noticed that the emergent parts of the game are by far the most interesting. See, most horror games rely on scripted scares, but I'm their #1 biggest hater, because if the developer just scared you can safely assume he won't do it again for a while. Not on my watch. Like when you're peacefully trying to loot a house, but you step on a bear trap, bleed everywhere, which attracts a wolf, which you subsequently shoot. Oh shit, now there's a massive bird chasing me, and in my panic, I will run 5 kilometers in the wrong direction. Looking back now, the next thing I did was risky as hell, cause I didn't just lean into this, I went full horizontal on that shit. Because the obvious next thing for me to do was to start the map again from the very beginning. Look, I don't know what it is with me, but every game I make seems to have trash gameplay, and there's always a this shit is ass moment that goes along with it. For example, in my first game, I realized that after release, which led to some banger reviews like, impossible and a total scam, 10 out of 10 would play again. On my next project, it was halfway through development, and this time I realized it straight away. But I kinda just forgot about it, so here I am after 7 months and I'm saying it again. From here on out, I'm deciding to absolutely lock in. I got a new book about game design so that I can learn everything there is to know because first of all, I want to improve, and I also don't want to give you a steaming pile of horse ass when it comes out. So I want to make the forest more interactive, which means creatures. But since I'm focusing only on gameplay, I need to whip these puppies up lickety-split, so I made the aggressive bean and the angry cube, and they're pretty great. The angry cube is supposed to be a wild boar who's passive unless you get too close to its face, in which case bro runs circles around you. It's totally not a bug. Then there's the aggressive bean who's just an aggressive bean for now, and I was on fire last night so I topped it off with the squished cylinder who obviously bears striking resemblance to a spider. You might be saying that this style is a little different to those other creatures I've modeled, and yeah, you have a point. But I ain't fallen into the trap of working tirelessly on a creature for 2 weeks and then wondering what on God's green earth even compelled me to make this thing. Not that it happened already or anything. Look, I'm no creatureologist, but most of the ones I made before don't feel like creatures at all. In fact, the only one that comes close is this thing, for which I wrote such diabolical code that it is quite literally unpredictable. Which turns out makes for a pretty interesting creature, so I'm gonna keep it. And if you're one of my lucky viewers that has eyes, you might have visually perceived that I'm experimenting with a higher resolution. I don't really like it, but I'm cooking up a really cool idea, so just bear with me. My entire game is based around your blood radiation, which slowly trickles down over time until... Alright, this is a placeholder which I'm renaming the beast for now because it's not actually a Wendigo. Anyway, basically broski comes out when your radiation drops into the red zone, which is why you gotta hurry around the forest to get yourself more blood. So realistically, I just need to design everything in the game to slow the player down, making it more likely that they encounter the beast. Which is why I've invented a brand new technology. Look, we've all heard of the quick time event, but get ready for the slow time event. And the first one I tried to make was a sort of bolt cutter minigame where you have to, cut some bolts. I recognize it may not look very promising, but I'm promising you that it's gonna be promising later, so don't you worry. With all these terrifying new creatures in my roster, I think I should do some obstacles. So, taking heavy inspiration from my bear trap design, I made a thorn bush, which hurts you if you walk through it. Playing the game now feels marginally more interesting, at least there are decisions I have to constantly make. Now, they're not super interesting decisions, mind you, but it's crazy to think about just how empty the game felt before. I remember it like it was just yesterday. Probably because it was yesterday. So with the forest feeling more alive, I continued with the gameplay related things and I added loot boxes. No, you won't be able to get the Wendigo schoolgirl skin from it because these are just locked crates in the forest which you gotta open with your bolt cutters. Inside you may find some useful items and I put them next to this beautiful hunting outpost model. Are you f***ing serious? The bolt cutter basically splits the gameplay loop into two parts, where you have to explore some dangerous area with your shotgun, and if you find something cool, you'll come back butt naked with a goddamn hedge trimmer to hopefully gain some useful items. Now, if you shoot a deer at the moment, bro just drops like a sack of bricks, which doesn't exactly make for exciting gameplay, so I made it run off once you shoot it and fall somewhere else, leaving a trail of radioactive blood behind for you to follow. I might even tell the deer's AI to sometimes, you know... And I did the same for you, so if you stub your toe in the forest, you'll experience serious arterial bleeding, pretty much forcing you to use a medkit as soon as possible. And since your radiation is stored in your blood, the gauge is going to be moving much faster. Look, so far I've had a mortal fear of being cliche, so I stayed away from adding a flashlight to the game. But I'm kinda starting to realize there's like a very good reason there's flashlights in horror games. And one morning while I was eating breakfast, I could have sworn that I was glowing, or maybe that was the radioactive chicken I was eating, but it gave me an idea. What if the player was glowing? Since you're radioactive, it makes sense, and your light will slowly fade away as your radiation depletes, giving you another reason to stay radiated. Don't get me wrong, I love the density of the forest as much as the next guy, but I actually went on a little expedition to a forest over the weekend, and I noticed that you don't really need it to be dense to feel like a forest, which I'm gonna take some inspiration from. Pardon my singing, I didn't know this was going on the internet.
Spend that on a necklace, oh.
Then I tried to make my own tree model because I'm still somehow in the need of trees after having invested almost 200 euro into them. But I gave up the moment I accidentally made seaweed, so we'll get back to it. Someone commented that I should look into game trails, which is a great idea. So I went on another expedition, this time to look specifically at game trails, and I found a dead body. I don't know what that shit was, but I ran away like my life depended on it. If you don't know what a game trail is, it's basically a trail for the game in my game to trail while letting the player trail the game trailing the game trail in my game. Which is just so useful, because I can finally have an excuse to make obvious paths through the forest. Anyway, another option is to get Speed Tree, where I buy it once for like 200 euro. Now just hear me out. I know that would place my tree expenditures into the upper 400s, but in theory, I get infinite trees, right? But after getting the free trial, I kinda realized I still have to, you know, learn the program, which costs money and time. And time is money, which means it would cost me money squared, which is really bad. So I need money squared, which is why I'm being sponsored by Skillshare. Now don't skip, I'm about to show you my drawing progress, and I'm really proud of it. Skillshare is the biggest online learning community for creatives with hundreds of classes on all sorts of things like drawing, to knitting, to yoga, photography, 3D modeling, texturing, product design, etc. Personally, I've been using Skillshare to improve my drawing skills because, let's not beat around the bush, they needed improving. Skillshare is learned by doing, so I did do, and as you can see here, I'm actually getting better. This is the first thing I drew that I was proud of, and my friend says it looks like a rotisserie chicken. But that's a starving child, and he's a terrible person. As you can see, I've gotten really into learning about light and shadow thanks to this course, which walked me through how to shade things in an advanced way. And goddamn, I've never seen such a good looking cone. This class is tried and tested for you, and it gets the wishbone stamp of approval. Now, obviously there's like so many more things that you can try, and I'll be real with you, I'm not reading all that out, but I genuinely really like what Skillshare is doing. So if you're thinking of making a really late New Year's resolution, or you just want to prove the haters wrong who say that your drawings suck, or you just want to be like me and start making games, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Now I want to add houses that you can actually enter, so I got this placeholder model until I make one myself. And yeah, I did make houses myself last time, but I kinda didn't plan them to have an interior, which was a minor miscalculation on my end. They're gonna be places of safety where not even the bat with the monstrous nutsack, growths can hurt you. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why the fuck? You're probably also thinking that's stupid as shit. But the fact of the matter is, this safety thing is playing mind games on you, because as soon as you start getting used to being in that scary forest, you find safety. You go in, get some loot, and blow off some steam, only to realize that you now have to leave your lovely safety and go back into the dark forest. It's like running upstairs into your bright room and realizing that you left something downstairs. But I'm 19, so I obviously don't do this anymore. And trust me, you'll be in danger if you don't wishlist vermin, cause I'm gonna suplex your grandmother next Wednesday. And this is when my friend came over, sat down with the game for literally 3 nanoseconds, and discovered that you can fly if you ADS while jumping, and that you can do this if you spam aim, and that this little creature is way more broken than I thought. Thanks. On the topic of aiming, I designed it in such a way that it discourages you from shooting, because, well, I'm not making a shooter game. The gun is designed to be more of a last resort, and that's also why it only has 1 barrel. But when I showed it to my friends in college, it had the whole squad laughing. It's not that bad, is it? Oh, and about the shotgun, I want to make a brand new model. Hold on, I am about to sidetrack my sidetrack. I did a bunch of coding to make a way to store your safety at any point in the forest, which is really interesting to me, but my viewer retention will kill itself and my YouTube channel will fall off, so I'm just going to show you the cool heat map. The brighter points show you the safer spots, and I can calculate the closest point to the player and use it in the AI of the creatures later on. And it's a little bit slow, but I can increase the resolution of the points to be able to have a more accurate reading so that I can... And to reinforce this dark staircase feeling, I made an effect where the forest darkens as you enter a safe spot. Alright, buckle up, here's the plan. I'm only going to work on the first version of the forest, which is where I'm going to build up the entire game, and I refuse to expand the map until I have this part feeling just how I want it to. I'm hoping this will make me less distracted and actually be able to focus on making gameplay rather than all of the flashy stuff. And to hold me accountable, I need everyone to subscribe if I get distracted. Speaking of the flashy stuff, the animation system in the game is less of a system and more of a Jenga tower where if I change anything, it'll completely demolish all the other things. So, I think it's time to finally upgrade it and make some better animations. This is when I stumbled upon Obrooks' video about his animation system, and I straight up just hit him up to ask for the Krabby Patty secret formula. And this man wrote me a whole ass dissertation, which made it very convenient for me to follow. So, in all my previous games, I've tried making first-person animation systems, and I always struggled. So when he showed me his way, I was downright flabbergasted. It was complicated as hell, but I had a version working pretty fast, so I rotated it to get some better lighting, and that's when I realized that it only works with that one very specific rotation. Hey, I'm human, I make mistakes too, and I fixed that up nicely. Then I did the unspeakable. I moved the character. Turns out, in my infinite wisdom, I made the entire animation system only work if you're standing at 000 staring straight ahead. Great job again, Wishbone, you knocked it out of the park on this one. Once that was working, I began making a procedural walk animation where I used like 27 overlapping sine waves. And just to make sure my maths was right, I did some debugging. Bro just started drawing perfect circles in the air like it was nobody's business. Now you might be thinking something along the lines of, how the fuck has bro gotten this far? Which is what I thought of myself when I saw myself. So a ginormous shout out to Obrooks for being my tech support guy. He makes devlogs by the way, so you know what to do. Oh, I finally modded a new shotgun. This time, I actually did my research and found an era-accurate single-barrel breech-loading shotgun which was used for hunting in the Soviet Union. Say that 50 times. Which is literally exactly what I needed. I'm really proud of this texture, but I couldn't find a good picture of the writing on the side, so I caved in and AI once again demonstrated that it's coming from my job. And yeah, I even added the company name to the rubber on the back, which I swiftly removed because I ain't trying to catch a lawsuit. Then I added the animation system to the game, so guys, welcome to Vermin. It's a AAA, really good quality. The way this works is that you can have items in both of your hands. The left side is for normal items, and the right is for tools such as the shotgun, bolt cutter, or Geiger counter. I think this animation system makes such a huge difference. You don't hold your shotgun like a buffoon anymore, and I swear to god that just walking around feels so immersive now. This is so cool, man. You don't understand how hyped I am about this. And the difference is night and damn, that's awesome. I can't wait to make my first animation, which is going to be for using the syringe. So I gathered some reference for myself, don't question my methods, and I gotta say, I cooked. Especially if we compare this to the last version, it's just so cool, man. I love first person animations. Back when I was playtesting my game, I noticed that it would be really cool to be able to slightly defend myself when I'm holding the bolt cutters. So I designed this flare gun which can be found just like any other item and it's single use. You can keep it in your offhand and fire it if you're in danger, which will scare just about anything away, once. Now I did make a sick ass texture for it, which I forgot to put on the gun for all the footage I recorded, so like it exists is what I'm trying to say. I talked earlier about the aesthetics of the game and that I have a cool idea for it, so I want to make the screen's resolution be dynamic, where the darker areas of the screen get less pixels to simulate the loss of vision you'd actually experience. I found this out firsthand when I was standing in that dark forest last summer because I couldn't even see my own feet, and they're usually pretty visible. There's only one little problem. I've never actually made a screen shader myself before, so after using up my free credits on 3 different ChatGPT accounts, the way I'm gonna achieve this is by using 2 things, the brightness of a pixel and the depth texture, which is basically a texture with depth. And I somehow made the view look like your face is just dripping with water, which is pretty realistic, I gotta say. And after half a brainstorming shower, half because I came up with the idea halfway through, so I had to quickly write it down somewhere before my brain factory resets. And playing with this new version is just so immersive. Then I did something kinda cool, and finally, we have our effect. Added a bunch of noise as well, and I think this gives the game a lot more character. Nothing is final, but I think it looks pretty fire. Now I want to get into the gameplay fully. This is a survival horror game, so there should be something stopping me from peacefully walking to my destination undisturbed. So just like in the first version of the game, I need there to be some things blocking your path that you gotta work your way past. And I've done my fair share of research in other survival horror games and all I could find was doors. Except for my baby Amnesia the Bunker, who is just a masterpiece. I noticed that in that game there's a lot of very simple obstacles like a tripwire or a bunch of rats or a lock, and these are not very interesting on their own, but when you mix them, you get the most f***ed up scenarios. Oh my god, hell. Since I'm such a scholar now, I've learned from my book that it's really important for the player to be able to make decisions all the time. Oh, I'm about to go ham on gameplay. Matter of fact, I'm going ham and cheese on this game. I'm about to go sandwich on this gameplay, and it's gonna be delicious. First, I'm gonna do some obstacles, so I made this mushroom, which release toxic spores if you walk past it, effectively blocking off that area. On its own, it's not too interesting. In fact, it's kinda trash, but just let me cook. After this, I made you be able to trigger bear traps by dropping an item in them, basically paying something to get past with either an item or your health. I also think that we should have some other places to get loot from, not just houses, so I came up with a dead body, for which I unfortunately don't have any reference images, so I downloaded this placeholder goofy skeleton and I laid bro to rest around the map. And to elevate this another step, I added the legendary carcass eater model back, and he still just munches away and looks around on occasion, but you can now scare him off from his dinner temporarily, giving you time to loot the body and get past it. This is when my brain began to explode with ideas, so I made this really tall, dense grass, which makes it pretty much impossible to see anything. A creature could just about be anywhere. Anyway, enjoy the grass. This makes your Geiger counter, or just, you know, your ears super important in there. I took inspiration from what happened to me over summer, except I didn't get eaten by a creature. There's been intense yapping in the comments about how weird it is that the water is corroding every creature under the sun, except for the weak-ass player character, and I was gonna cope by saying he's got some nice knee-high rubber boots, but I smelled obstacle. So I finally made the water damage you, and the great thing is that this lake area is not so open anymore. You can still see to the other side, but there's no way to get directly through unless you want to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your vermin life. So go back in the grass, it's nice in there. Pairing the grass with the water, we get an interesting situation. Hell, I can throw a carcass eater in there, and now you gotta listen out carefully for the creature, ready to shoot it in its left eyebrow while watching your step for the corrosive water, and watching the sky to know where you're going. See how interesting all this is, and the more of these things I can add to the game, the more situations I can make. Then I came back to the wolf from my last video, and its AI was so ass it sent me straight to the hospital. Now I don't know if it was the fluid they put in my veins, but I came home feeling creative as hell. First, I decided to make bro roam around the forest, always getting a little bit closer to the player, just to make it really feel like you and this animal always have a chance of meeting up. Then, from the depraved depths of my imagination, a brand new obstacle. A baby bird who's begging for food. Now, just to test this idea, I downloaded this goofy chicken model which has more polygons than Lady Dimitrescu's ass. And look at me go, I drew this myself in only an hour. I feel like I've been improving at everything recently, not sure if you guys can see that too, but I really feel it. I also had to make a rabbit out of cubes, and so basically the bird will block your path, his mouth is always open and ready to receive, kinda like your mom, and you can feed it a few things. The first one being a 12 gauge slug, then a goddamn rocket propelled flare. Or if you can catch a rabbit by sneaking up behind it, you'll be able to feed it to the bird. I can't stand looking at these placeholders anymore, which means I gotta make some models. I went outside to do some research for the rabbit, but it has too much fur, so I did what I had to do. I'm kidding. Me being the Leonardo da Vinci that I am, drew this in an hour and I was ready to model it. I don't like when games treat animals as items, like how are you gonna tell me I have 64 fish in my back pocket? So obviously I don't want to do that with my game, but you might be thinking, how do you keep a rabbit in your inventory? Fair question, easy, just put a nail through it. Then I had to make a holding animation for it, which is when I remembered my game is supposed to be fucked up, so I didn't hold back on this one. Some may say I've gone a little overboard because I wanted you to feel bad for it, so I added some functionality to make facial animations, even moving its eyes, and yeah, that's something I made, and it feels right at home in my game. Sometimes it feels like I'm making Animal Abuse Simulator, but trust me, this is important. If there's one thing you should take away from this, wishlist vermin. If there's two things you should take away from this, vermin is wishlistable. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I wish you would list vermin. I always say that I want to make you feel bad for these animals, they're victims of this world just as much as you are. And that's what inspired me for this baby bird, who is stuck inside of his own skin, defenseless, born into such a cruel, unforgiving world, hopelessly begging for food, screaming to be cared for. This was my first time hand painting skin, so I took some inspiration from my feet, which are notorious for always making people look the other way. Then I set up some procedural animation for it in Unity, and now all that's left to do is some voice acting. And it looks so good. Shame the effects in my game hide anything cool I make, like I could probably get away with PS2 models, but I like going above and beyond. So I channeled my disgusting mutated inner rabbit and sniffled like my life depends on it. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I can do a very good baby bird impression, so I banged that out in one take, then I added effects, and yeah, I'm adding these to my repertoire of voice acting roles I've been a part of. Not gonna lie, I've been staring at this hand texture for way too long now. don't know why I'd lie about that actually, but I can definitely improve on it, so I began making a new one. And it looks way better now. Except the bandage looks like my grandmother's tablecloth, so give me a second. Alright, this is what it looked like beforehand. And this is what it looked like afterhand. Now I'm finally ready to show the process of feeding the rabbit to the bird. So I somehow inserted my hand in the rabbit's ass, shot a flare out of its mouth, smacking the bird's cranium, causing it to poof out of existence. Next, I want to add some place with a lot of danger, but also possible rewards. So I decided I would make a carcass, which has predators nearby. And these predators are going to touch you regardless of your age, so you better watch out. And before I made the model, as always, I did my research by watching an 18-minute uncut time-lapse of a dead horse being eaten by wild animals. Only for me to decide that it's too early to make the model, so I put the wolf halfway through the floor and called it a day. This place is dangerous because there are so many flies near the carcass that you literally lose all sense of hearing. So, you gotta be fast and rely on your Geiger counter. Now I want to make you be able to open doors to make the houses feel a little bit safer. So I wrote some quick code for it, and whoever I downloaded the model from I guess pranked me because he put 2 doors into 1 door. I have no respect for you. I'm in a constant war with my game to not add any UI. I really don't want to have a single piece of it because I personally don't like that in horror games. But when I was playtesting, I kept forgetting that I had a round in my shotgun, which, as you can guess, is not a fun thing to think about when you're actively getting railed. And then what if the player logs off? I ain't expecting them to remember what they did with the bullet at 9:46 PM on the 2nd of June last year. So I made a chamber inspect animation to see if there's a round in there. I really love this because it not only doesn't destroy the immersion with a big 1 on the screen, but I think it adds to it. It has 3 states, either empty, loaded, or if you just shot, it'll eject the shell when you open the chamber. I love first person animations. And I will admit this was inspired by Amnesia the Bunker, kinda like the whole rest of my game. And I simply just couldn't help myself, so I dove into making a reload animation for the shotgun. But there's only one problem. While the toilet paper I was using previously represents almost every object in the known universe, I failed to realize that the shotgun is a slightly different shape and I couldn't seem to find one at home, so I improvised. I did some DIY with my, mom's flip-flop, a gift wrapping paper tube, some clips, a coat hanger as the stock, and I'm gonna load it with a fish. Look, we listen, we don't judge, because this has all the functionality I needed, and I gathered some great reference. With that footage, I made this, and I'm so proud of it. I love first-person animations, and I find it really cool that I can finally make ones for my own game. This is really exciting for me. And to top the shotgun off, I made the shooting a bit more immersive by knocking your eardrums out of this universe. With the shotgun sound echoing through the environment before you lose your hearing, then you'll hear muffled with your ears ringing for about 30 seconds after shooting, which can be really scary, especially if you just shot something and you're not sure if it's still around. Then I added a needle for the Geiger counter because I felt that it was going to add a lot of life to it, and it sure did. Then, for another obstacle, I came up with this field of spores, which don't damage you straight away, but if you spend enough time there breathing them in, you'll begin to take damage. And I reintroduced the bats with the massive butt growths from last episode, and placed them near structures to put pressure on the player. Man, I can't believe at one point I looked at this log and thought, yeah, that would make for a banging obstacle. It sure did, buddy. So I think it's time to give this game a test and see how it goes. Well, I just finished, and I'm speechless. So speechless, in fact, that I'm gonna tell you all about it. I started off at the mushroom, but since I didn't have any items, I decided to go around to the tall grass instead, where I got charged by a wild boar, so I ran into the grass. But then I got a Geiger signal in there and I think I peed a little, so I quickly left it and tried to loot a shack. That's when a bat started crawling after me and it almost blocked my door, but I found some good loot. With my Geiger counter, I found a rabbit and I knew it would be important later, so I grabbed it as well. Then I had to go back through the tall grass, which I wasn't exactly hyped to do, this time into a carcass eater. Unfortunately, I had to use a bullet on him. And the body didn't have any items, so I kept going. I went into another shack, then I found a baby bird, so I took out the rabbit, Broski gobbled it up, and I found a snail. Which is when I noticed I'm really low on radiation, so I had to use another bullet to break the snail open. This is so good because I felt absolutely awful having to use my resources, which means I'm making a good survival horror game. Then a wolf straight up walked past me, and in these moments you could give half a shit about your resources, you just want to live, so I shot it with my flare gun, which made it run off. And I slowly snuck up to the carcass while checking around with my Geiger counter. I actually couldn't hear a single thing, but I found a bullet and a medkit, which was totally worth it. Then I had to sacrifice an item to the bear trap so I can get to the lookout, where I found another snail and bolt cutters. There was a crate right in there, so I dropped my shotgun and went for it, but I tripped the mushroom, which meant there was no going back for now, and this little motherfucker, he was just watching me open the crate, and I didn't know if he would attack, not that I had anywhere to run right now, but with my radiation putting pressure on me, I really had to go find a house and unlock that gate. I snuck through the tall grass defenseless with creatures on all sides of me. This was one of the scariest parts, but I made it to the house, unlocked the gate, and got inside. I felt such a fat sense of relief, some might call it obese. I found some supplies, and now I had to head back to my shotgun. Nah, the feelings I got leaving that house were indescribable. When I got back, I used the snail, and now I had to return to the house because that's where I can progress. So I went back into the tall grass, this time with a way to defend myself, but there seemed to be even more creatures around. A little creature began watching me, so I shot it, which wasn't a very good idea because I angered the wild boar and ran right into an aggressive bean, which hurt me a lot. I reloaded, I fired off again, getting hit by the wild boar. I'm on such low health at this point, losing radiation fast with my ears ringing, and I'm still being chased. I checked my inventory and thank god I had a medkit on me. I narrowly escaped the wild boar chasing me and I got into the house. I don't think you understand how amazing this felt, and once again we had a shit hits the fan moment where I wasn't paying enough attention and one mistake led to panic, then another mistake, more panic, and more mistakes. My heart rate was so fast at this point, and it's not like I have an irrational fear of white cubes, it's just that the gameplay itself was scaring me. Just imagine once I have all the models and sounds and stuff. I'm super proud of where Vermin is right now, and I've never been so excited to work on it. Here on out, I'm going to be working on trying to get the first area to feel perfect, I'll polish it up, and then it's time to playtest with real players. So if you want to have a chance to playtest in the future, join my Discord, and I just updated the Steam page with sick-ass screenshots, so check that out and give it a wishlist please. Alright, see you later, crocodile.